Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this special edition webinar on digital storytelling. We've prepared about 45 minutes of content for today with the intent that we'll have plenty of time to answer any Q&A. We'll be moderating the Q&A through the GoToWebinar tool. If for any reason you have any technical issues or difficulties, just chat us through that window and box. And today we have two speakers with us contributing from the Miles team. And we also are pleased to have join us our friends and partners from OmniVirt. So before we get started, I'm going to let our team briefly introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Elena Prestova, and I am VP of Creative Services and New Business at Miles.
And I am Jennifer Duncan, a Senior Interactive Producer here at Miles.
And hi, everyone. I'm Michael Rucker, co-founder and Chief Operating Officer at OmniVirt, and excited to be with you all today.
So to start the presentation, I'm sure many of you guys know that Miles Partnership is a full-service marketing company focused exclusively in travel and tourism. And the company was founded 65 years ago, specializing in producing travel guides. So this passion for travel content stays with us through the years, and now we apply it to digital storytelling. So today we will talk specifically about digital storytelling, mainly for the web platform. And we will share with you lots of examples from travel and tourism industry, as well as from other brands. And because many of these examples don't have corresponding case studies with specific results, we wanted to start with some research foundation from Content Marketing Institute, as well as from the State of American Traveler research that we published together with destination analysts. So today we'll talk about digital storytelling. We'll talk about fundamentals to the successful rich content experience. We'll talk about different building blocks that you can use to create those experiences. We'll talk about 3 types of digital storytelling, and then we'll highlight our technology partner, OmniVirt, with Michael highlighting all the features and functionalities of their platform. And we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. So let's first talk about fundamentals of digital storytelling. And creation of quality immersive content has always been one of the core purposes of destination marketing organizations. However, in the recent times, content marketing has been embraced across multiple industries, and we see banking companies, healthcare companies, media companies very actively developing all sorts of marketing strategies and digital storytelling. So according to the most recent research from the Content Marketing Institute, 86% of the surveyed marketers have indicated that their organization is actively using content marketing. And in doing so, they develop different types of content. It's not surprising that social media posts are leading the way, but right next to it are videos, illustrations, photos, infographics, and interactive tools. And in creating all these different types of content, they are definitely exposing the general audience and all of us to these different rich story experiences that now we're able to see in places where we might be not expecting. From the same research, we know that 81% of marketers agree that interactive content is more effective in grabbing attention and engaging the audience. In parallel to this adoption of content marketing by different brands, we also see an extensive growth of brand content studios. And we see some companies, traditional publishers like New York Times and Nat Geo, launching very successful content studios. We see travel brands like Marriott launching one of the first content studios in the hospitality space, and then media companies like BuzzFeed. But some of the names that you might see on the screen are less expected, like IBM having now editorial video studio. So we definitely see that the power of content and content marketing is being embraced by some of the traditional media brands and less expected in this effort to create quality branded content. And for the publishers, they want to help advertisers to have their messages stand out. And also, they want to create this authentic quality content that builds trust and reach of the brands, as we're talking about example of IBM. And we all have seen examples of outstanding content work created by those studios. My personal favorite is Two Women Break Boundaries, which was done by the Atlantic's content studio that's called Rethink. And this is a very daring experience of two women traveling to the most isolated place in the world. And it's sponsored by North Face. So like all the clothing and gear that they have on this trip is actually coming from North Face. And it's a very immersive, interactive experience that truly makes you see like all the difficulties and all the journeys and fun that they had along the way. So in the world of destination marketing, quality content plays a really important role of inspiring travelers to choose a destination. And in the most recent edition of State of American Traveler, we asked the question, what inspires you to choose one destination over the other? And in looking at the results, more than 65% have identified word of mouth, which are opinions of friends and relatives. But the second closest one at 40% is all online media that also includes destination websites. So the importance of quality content cannot be denied for destination websites or travel brands websites. Talking about specific types of content that influence travel, we're able to tap into two major conversion studies. One earlier one that we conducted with DML West of the CVB websites, and the one we're just finishing with state tourism offices, allow us to see 5 top critical website types and features that influence travel. So the first one are activities, attractions, and things to do. So these are your experiences. What can you see and experience in a destination? Followed by more specific geographical content, city, town, then maps, itineraries, so we're getting into more planning type of information, and then followed by cuisine and events. So we can see that content is truly fundamental to inspire and inform travelers. So how should a destination or a travel brand approach creating these rich content experiences? So we believe that it comes down to 3 fundamental principles. First one is alignment of content strategy with destination's brand identity, marketing objectives, and audiences. It's not just creating something because it would be fun or cool or engaging, but truly creating content with purpose. Second is novelty of approach, finding that unique lens that represents a destination, or finding a unique attribute that you can only find in a specific place and telling a story around it. Or how can you use that icon to tell the story of your destination? And we'll show you some really interesting examples of how some travel brands have done it brilliantly. And finally, not forgetting about storytelling and visual value of content, because ultimately that's how you create emotional connection. So it's not just about delivering information, but it's about connecting emotionally. And with all what you do, your rich content experiences need to be created with awareness of the platform where you deliver it. So for example, with destination websites, we know that more than 50% of traffic is coming from mobile devices. So as these experiences are being created, they have to be equally appealing on different types of screens. Or if you develop these content experiences for video channels or for social, just keep that in mind. Like today, we're more specifically focused on digital, like website platform, but it definitely goes beyond in distribution. So first, let's talk about brand alignment. And our favorite example is Nebraska's recent campaign. Honestly, it's not for everyone. And the campaign turns negative perceptions into marketing positives. And that's on the fact that the lack of pretension will work well for you as a destination. So as you look at these ads, famous for our flat, boring landscapes, but the image in that is communicating a different message. So for this advertisement, they want to challenge our perception and attract the travelers that are open to new ideas, the travelers that might want to get away from the city scene and from the busy life at the city and explore these unpretentious, fun, simple, and unique experiences in Nebraska. And the tone of these ads is very specific, it's direct, it has an element of humor, it has a little bit of sarcasm. So we believe it would be really important as we we're launching the new site for Nebraska to keep this brand identity in the experience on the new homepage. So as you can see on the homepage, it continues the story started in the ads and exposes visitors to all sorts of unexpected, scenic, quirky, and fun experiences that state has to offer. And the voice and tone of the website is also in alignment with this direct and unpretentious style. Visuals are larger than life, and they come together in these expanding panels, and you can scroll for each one of the panels. There's lots of attention to detail, like where the heck is this as a caption for the image. So it all feels like the same style that you've seen in the ads initially before you arrived on this website. Another great example is a brand alignment across all channels in the work done by Tourism Australia. So in the brand document that you can see in front of us, they are focusing on 4 key experience pillars: food and wine, aquatic and coastal, Aboriginal Australia, and nature and wildlife. And as you visit Australia's website, you can see that from navigation to the structure of landing pages, and also from the content structure in the digital 360 video experiences, it's all aligned with these pillars. And as a user, you're being directed through these very specific experiences that define Australia as a destination. So talking about the novelty of approach, it's really hard not to talk about Travel Oregon's work. And the first one is the game that you can see on the left is inspired by the classic game that I think many of us remember from childhood. And this experience is designed with the same aesthetics as the game, and it introduces its own trail for 7 travel regions of Oregon. And it provides a user-friendly experience that is fun and playable, but at the end, you are given your own itinerary based on your choices. And aside from the fact that we're all getting engaged as a user, it also allows Travel Oregon to collect important data on each one of us as a user, what kinds of experiences we're interested in, and then potentially use it for remarketing. The second example, which I think is really different and unique and shows how you can take this unique attribute of a destination, in this case, Chinook salmon, which is the state fish, and tell the story of a destination through 360-degree videos where you can encounter Chinook telling the story of a destination. So I think that's really fun and unique and memorable. Another example of a novel approach has been created by Google in collaboration with Jackie Kenny, who is a very unique kind of photographer. She has developed a rare condition, a fear of travel, which I think for all of us as travel marketers is, if we would get it, we would think that how can we continue marketing travel? But she was able to, for this collaboration with Google, to continue her work. And what she's done in this experience is she used Google Street View, and she dedicated over a year of her life looking for different locations on Google Street View to try to find these unique pictures that represent the sense of place or capture that unique moment in that specific point in time. And her story is being told in this really beautiful microsite landing page where you can actually see the original 360 views that inspired her to take that picture and kind of shows her way for the world in finding these unique experiences. It's nicely packaged, and it also combines her own story and kind of creates awareness about agoraphobia, which is this condition, the fear of travel. Moving along to the fundamentals of storytelling in visual value and emotional connection, our favorite example is the website done by Humboldt County, and it's truly an equal part of enchantment and education. Like from the very beginning, you're invited to follow the magic. So by following the magic, you're able to see the amazing scenery and beautiful videos, photography that define this county that you might not be very aware of or interested in initially. So the experience beautifully combines video footage, animation, well-written copy that kind of leads the story. But throughout the experience, you are able to pin different scenes and add them to your trip planner. So again, there's an element of activation. It's not just inspiration, but it also transitions into planning. So we've showed you some inspiration examples of different types of storytelling. Now we're moving along to storytelling components or building blocks of creating these experiences.
And when you start talking about digital storytelling, really you're given new avenues to be able to tell your story and new tools to be able to tell that story. And so you start looking at what those options are to make the story come alive. And it really is key to make sure that the options that you choose match the story you're trying to tell and work with the idea that you have in place. You have your multimedia items, so you have things like videos and GIFs and 360s. And we're going to talk a little bit about like user experience features and how that kind of plays into it. And then also the idea of how some interactive features, encouraging people to click on things within interactive maps, maybe take a quiz, or possibly even click on some hotspots can be used. So when you start thinking about the idea of adding sound to your videos or to your website, you really want to think about the purpose of the sound. While it creates an emotional connection for people, you want to make sure that there's a really strong value and connection for why you're doing that. In this example from Hawaii, the idea that they really wanted to pull in a lot of their culture into that website and make sure that people could understand that destination from that standpoint and not lose it was a really key piece that needed to occur here. So being able to add in that digital sound of some of their actual chants to really bring the folklore of the destination alive was a really great way to introduce that. Cinemagraphs are another thing that you're seeing more and more of. They're extremely popular because they remove the barrier of having to hit like a play button on a video, something along those lines. They almost add this little bit of magic to the page, an unexpected twist that makes you emotionally connect with it. And of course, video is always a great way to bring a page alive, bring a story alive. And it doesn't have to have a full audio or video or a full story being told within that video. You can do so much with something as simple as a looped video where you're able to capture so many more events and things within that one section. So like in this Pure Michigan example, they're using their main hero to show you more than just one image could have ever captured in this place. You get to see so many more experiences that they're offering and puts you more in that feeling of you were actually there and get an idea of how you might want to experience that. The next thing is look at user experiences. And when we talk about this, what we're looking at is that concept of the idea that the way we scroll through a page, the way we have transitions on things like hovers that make you want to interact with it, and what those little bit of animations really do to help bring the story alive, connecting it with really large visuals. So here we've got beautiful imagery along with the text, and then you bring in like this little parallax that takes a moment to soften and give you a whole different experience. This piece is from New York Times Brand Studio, and it was done for Embassy of Japan to talk about sort of the relationship between the two countries and their friendship. And you'll see how they've brought in, sure, some media like videos, and so they've brought in some maps for little extra added pieces. But as you go through the story, it builds itself out for the visitor, letting you sort of digest all of these great pieces at one time and create, like I said, a real emotional connection through quite a bit of content that they take you through. Looking at interactive features, quizzes are always really fun, as I mentioned. Like I said, that idea to get something out there to get your user to want to click through or ask questions to make them want to give you more information. And quizzes are always a really fun way to do that. This example from Time Labs talks about the idea of like where burgers come from in America. It gives a little bit of history and background on it. And then the next thing it does is it takes you and says, hey, now create your own. So it gives you a little game where you're encouraged to, add your own bun, add your own protein, what vegetables, what toppings you want to put. And then based on what you choose, you then come back through and you're encouraged to see like what's your city that would match. And of course, you're encouraged to share that. So now we're taking it out and making our users advocates for what we've done and what we've shared to broaden that reach out a little bit further. And we start talking about interactive features. Maps are always a great thing to use to really kind of do a sense of place. And this example from Finland took it further than that. We're not just thinking about a sense of place or relation between where this city is versus that city, but by creating this sort of interactive map where we have a illustrated version where we really get a sense for what each of the cities are, paired with a small write-up about them. You're able to explore it in such a much more robust way than you could through a Google map that just showed pins or allowed you to sort of click around. So it's more than just you knowing where things are in relation to each other, but telling a little bit about the destination as a whole and starting to get you intrigued by that a little bit further. And of course, then for each of them, you then have sort of that option to come in and read more about that additional destination and get full info. So once you have all of your sort of storytelling pieces and you understand how you could maybe work with some of that media and what some of those tools are, and you're starting to think about your story, we really want to start thinking about the three main types of digital storytelling. And those are going to be branch narrative, visual learning, and immersive experiences. And we'll start by talking a little about what a branch narrative is. So branch narratives are really the ones that allow you to engage your visitors in a way where they start providing information to you so that they can choose their own adventure. They kind of decide where the story goes. So they can either have choices that lead to a different outcome so that they feel like the information they're being given is personalized or unique to them. Or it could be information where as they go through, they get to choose in what order they select the things. So you're not dictating to them, you have to read the story or you have to experience this place going from A to B. Maybe they wanted to start with C and give them that sort of chance to move around. Example here of rebuilding Haiti. It's a unique one in that as you read through the story, it starts off using a great user experience with visuals and a lot of copy, but as you go through, it starts to ask you questions to put you in that mindset of how would you handle the situation, what would you do? As it prompts you with the questions, it changes the order in which the chapters load for you. So you get a little bit different experience, and it changes the way that you take on the story and start to experience it throughout. And it's fun because they're not all in one place. They're sprinkled through. So rather than it being like a set of questions you had to answer at the beginning or try to like go through all at one time, you're really given that chance to slowly kind of move through the story, read it, digest it as you want, and then it poses new questions as you continue to move forward. So as we mentioned, the idea of quizzes is one that definitely comes into that branching narrative. And so this example from Finland takes you through that idea of creating an option to be able to visually make some decisions. So you're prompted with photos, and depending on which one you emotionally connect with, it depends on where you click, it starts to dictate and turn around and give you an idea of what some itineraries are for you. The great thing about this is you're not only creating that connection of you telling your own story or you're getting personalized content that feels unique, but you're also being put in that position where you're offering them some information for other marketing use down the line. And once again, at the end, you get your little archetype of who you are. You're given a chance to share it on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, you're given that really unique experience where you feel like these are the places that were handpicked for me and are recommendations for me based on my likes and what I want. So it just creates a different connection with that content. Visual learning is probably the most common type you see online. This is going to be ones that are really grounded in the core principles of storytelling. It's going to use a lot of multimedia, a lot of visuals. It's going to really focus on that user experience. They're typically longer pieces. So this is things where we have really long scrolling pages and we're bringing a lot of information in. The idea is that you are educating or informing your visitors to a point where they're so entertained they don't realize they're actually learning or continuing to go deeper. Example here is Where is Poland? This is a website that is done by Poland CL, which is an organization set to basically promote the Poland culture throughout the world. And as you look through, each page itself doesn't have tremendous amounts of copy, but rather they pair that with graphics, they pair it with images, and little areas of little fun quotes that sort of pop up or highlight where you can get more information. They encourage you to interact with things to find out more information so that not only are you telling it through a visual fashion, through the written copy, but you are being encouraged to interact and keep you going further down the page. And it's taken something that could have been considered a very dry read, a lot of history, a lot of culture, things like that, that would be very text heavy, and made it fun and engaging and very visual. making your user want to stay on the page longer, making your user want to continue to know more. And while this example is one that's very rich in content and very long, and so to pull something like this together, you obviously have to spend a lot of time writing and images. You can still create impactful pages along these lines with less copy and more imagery to tell the story. So while this particular one is very focused on that, like I said, you don't always have to have this amount of content. It's really more about thinking about the visuals that you can pair with that content that you have and how that moves forward. The last group is called immersive experiences. And so if we look at immersive experience storytelling, we're talking about things where our real goal here is to kind of go past the website or your current reality into something that's a lot more experiential and make you, transform you to a different place in a new reality. And so the more senses you can sort of incorporate into these kinds of pages or into these technologies, the more you're able to sort of actively be able to reach out and, like I said, connect with your visitor on that level. And our first example here is from St. Pete Clearwater. This is Central Avenue, where the idea is really to take our visitors and transform them into being a local in the downtown St. Pete area and get to experience everything that's there. And OmniVirt worked with us on this, and they're going to talk a little bit more about some of the technologies and things behind this here in a moment. But the idea is that we take our visitors in, they get to pick their interests of what sort of, where they're inclined to know more. And then when we're taken into those stories, we're not just given a lot of text, but rather we're given lots of images that show the small details, which help capture the actual environment, capture what we're actually seeing if we were there. We're given a chance to go through 360s where we can really dive into something like a video, get that feeling of if we were there, what we would see, what we would experience, and we can kind of move around and check out all of those different pieces and where everything's sort of outlined. And what's really great about this too is as you look in the different ones, each one of these little sections has a very different and unique feel. So while they're all sort of focused on Central Avenue, you can tell as you jump from one topic to another topic, like you do get that feeling of how you've transitioned from being in an art gallery to now being out into the street here with the pet friendly and, like I said, being able to be on the outside and being able to see the murals and sort of take in all of that. So it really does sort of bring you into that environment. This example of 360s from South Africa is another one that really can bring in your visitors. Play for me. So when we go in, obviously you're brought into the initial page. You're given the option to sort of choose where you want to go, what you want to experience. And as you pull into and as it loads into the experience that you sort of come into, not only does it offer you these beautiful vistas that you can kind of look around and see, but you're also given a narrative at the same time. So there's an audio component to this one that helps make you feel even more like you're actually there. They also do that great option of letting your visitors sort of determine where else they might want to go next. So while you're in here, you're not stuck in that one experience. You can click over to a different one, and you can start to have different experiences within it. And when we start talking about immersive experiences, the next level from going from a 360 or something like that on a website is really starting to talk about virtual reality and augmented reality and how those things sort of work for us and where we can start taking marketing in the next direction. The video here that we're watching is one for Merrill hiking shoes. They had a brand new hiking shoe they wanted to present. The concept is how do you really make people get interested in it and excited about a new shoe? And so the concept here was really to bring them into a three-dimensional world where not only are they wearing oculars where they're having to watch through 3D and feel like the experience is there, but they actually built the bridge that people are walking over. And if you watch the video of them and set inside, you see how your visitors are emotionally connecting with that content that you're putting in place with them and how it totally changes their experience and the way that they would have seen that brand or seen that shoe to have just, had shoes out on display or something along those lines. As we continue to talk about immersive experiences, we want to pass it over to OmniVirt.
Great, thank you so much. Let me know, I know we wanted to come in here. Folks can see my screen here. See if this load up there.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. That was a great introduction, taking a look at some of the work that Miles has done with customers and other case studies in the immersive space. What I want to take you through is what we're doing at OmniVirt and how immersive content can basically come to life for destination marketers. So the real reason that we're excited about immersive content, and I think everyone in the marketing space should be, is we're all bombarded as consumers with thousands of ad messages every day. And what we see is the opportunity for immersive content to really cut through that clutter, right? How does your message, your marketing, your content, your advertising jump out? How do you sort of convey magic, right? This 360 experience is maybe a type of content that someone's never seen before, or that VR experience you just saw from Merrill is the type of trade show or event activation that someone's never seen before. And so obviously conveying magic is a way of really making things stick in your consumer's mind. And ultimately, it really is about getting results, right? How do you ensure that when you create that experience and you invest in that content, that you're able to reach people with that content, and that it's actually having the impact that's intended? And that's really what we've been focused on with our platform and our technology. I want to take you through the different types of media formats that we've been focused on. I think some of this has come up in some of the other slides spoken to previously, but the first is really around 360 VR content, whether it's interactive experiences with hotspots, as you've seen. The great thing about 360 content as it relates to the travel space is that as destination marketers, what we're really doing is marketing our destination. And there's no better way to do that than to transport your audience to that destination. So we'll talk in a little bit more detail about around 360 content, how it's captured, how it's distributed. But we've seen a tremendous amount of investment into the 360 content space from marketers in this space. The other area I want to talk about is 3D photography. One of the challenges in the 360 VR space is that not every campaign or client or sort of website is going to necessarily have access to 360 content. But as you've seen in the slides previously, every website has a photograph. And we've developed new technology to take existing photographs and convert those into 3D photos. And then lastly, augmented reality. Similar to the VR space, how do you, instead of transporting your audience to a destination, how do we bring that destination to the consumer? And you can see here how Lufthansa is actually leveraging 360 content, but through an augmented reality portal, where through that virtual portal, the consumer is able to step through that door on a beach and actually now be in New York. Really interesting way of kind of communicating the new flight from, I think, Florida to New York City. Great. So I want to start with AR. I think this tends to be maybe sometimes the heaviest lift in terms of creating the content, just because there sort of tends to be sort of a 3D graphics component to it, which not every marketer will necessarily have access to. But what you can do with augmented reality is sort of build a 3D experience and right from the mobile device, basically give the consumer the ability through their camera, through that lens, it becomes a new storytelling medium where they can place those objects in their environment. You can actually bring the destination to the traveler. So what you're seeing here is essentially a 3D object built sort of in any sort of 3D rendering software. And that's being combined with 360 photography, which I'll talk about just in a second. Those two combined allow the creation of a virtual portal. So with those two components, it becomes very easy, whether it's through your website or through an ad that gets distributed, the opportunity kind of to create an augmented reality experience using that camera as a communication vehicle. Another way of kind of communicating with consumers if you have 360 content is what was spoken about before with Visit St. Pete's Clearwater, is experiencing, in this scenario, downtown. But imagine any sort of virtual tour experience. We saw several different examples of this previously, where here on your destination website, the ability to not only have text and images, but with the tap of a button, be able to access a virtual tour of the downtown destination. And what you're seeing here are interactive hotspots. I won't go through the details in this presentation, but we have a very simple tool, and we've done a lot of work with Miles around this, where you can take existing 360 content and combine that with existing 2D photos, videos, text, to create an interactive 360 experience that can be embedded into your destination website, as well as distributed across the web as 360 ads. Now, there's a tremendous opportunity around sort of creating these virtual tour experiences, but one of the challenges might be that you may not have access to 360 content. That's why we're really excited about 3D photos. We see this as an opportunity for marketers to leverage the two-dimensional content they already have and create a lightweight immersive experience. You can see here upon scroll and movement of the phone how that flat 2D photo actually has dimension to it. And I'll take you through in the next slides here how simple the process is to take the assets, whether those are photos on your website or existing, let's say, banner ads that you're already working with your media and marketing teams on, and add that depth, add that immersiveness to kind of bring something that's normally flat and two-dimensional into a 3D experience. So I want to kind of take through a little bit of a tutorial here on how to create a 3D photo. So here we are, here's just an example of some great content from Travel Nevada. But if you have, which I'm assuming everyone does, have a JPEG, identify that image that can be 3Dified. I really recommend choosing something that's visually stunning, something that has some depth to it. You can see here the feet in the foreground, sort of the scenic vista in the background. So after you identify that image, the next thing you're going to want to do is create a depth map. And this isn't as scary as it may look or sound. As you can see, it's very similar asset to the image that you already have. Any designer, anybody with sort of Photoshop knowledge, Miles is obviously very familiar with this product as well and can support. Very easy to convert your existing two-dimensional photo into what we call a depth map. The lighter the color, the more in the foreground. The darker the color, the more in the background. And what we'll do is, you'll take this, we've launched a very easy to use tool, it's actually free to use. You can take that existing 2D photo, you merge that with the depth map, and then you can actually, for an ad, like layer on some sort of call to action message, and you go from having a flat 2D photo, in this scenario a banner, to a three-dimensional sort of banner. That can be distributed across desktop, mobile, any place that you're maybe distributing your traditional digital ads today. So a very simple way of taking content you already have, ads, let's say that you maybe are already running, and converting those into three-dimensional content experiences. Once again, this could be on your website or in this scenario, distributed as an ad. Now, distribution I really think is key with all of these experiences. Obviously, it's important to invest in your own destination, create a rich immersive experiences for people that are searching for you, finding you, coming to your site. But what we love about immersive experiences, you can see here on ESPN, this just happens to be our 360 example that we were talking about previously. This would similarly apply for the 3D photos or the augmented reality experiences, where right on ESPN, in that area where you would traditionally have, let's say, that Travel Nevada or Visit Poland experience, the user is able to engage with that interactive 360 experience right there on ESPN.com. Great. So I want to kind of take you through those different formats, give you a brief tutorial on how to create something, for example, like 3D photo, and show you how that would get distributed at scale. So with that in mind, I'll toss it back over to the Miles team and open it up for any Q&A.
Thanks, Michael. As we're transitioning into our kind of final thoughts and key takeaways, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please go ahead and send them over to us in the questions panel, and we'll moderate those through. Just as an overall note, we will be sharing a recording of the session. If you registered, we'll be sending a follow-up email with that as well.
So in the conclusion of this webinar, we want to point out that the rich content experiences are clearly highly effective for travel marketing, and while they're very popular among different brands and content studios, travel is definitely the area or the industry that can truly own it, because we are marketing a highly emotional product, so it definitely belongs in that industry. And because of the immersive formats, like this kind of experiences truly allows us to connect with travelers and website users on an emotional level and make them passionate about your brand and make them remember your brand. So what could be the next steps in developing this content experiences? So it's could be a combination of these 6 specific tactics. One is conducting a content audit to discover opportunities for rich storytelling. What might be the landing pages or articles on your website that could be turned into richer, more immersive content combinations? Before you make those choices, definitely think about your goals and KPIs, because ultimately they need to be supporting your overall measurement framework. Developing story components first is really important before being really enchanted by cool maps or really nice interactive quizzes. Truly thinking about what is the story you want to tell, and then followed by outlining your media needs and your functionality needs so that the overall concept goes first. If possible, create or repurpose existing content elements. Michael was just talking about 3D photographs, so this is a great example how you can add extra life and dimension to your existing images. Leveraging partnerships for enhanced user experience, as we demonstrated with OmniVirt and Central Avenue Experience for visits in Peak Clearwater. And finally, testing and evolving. That's really important, especially with such complex content experiences as the ones that we showed to you. So, and with that, we'll conclude our webinar, leaving plenty of time for Q&A, so hopefully you have some good questions for us.
All right. So to kick us off here, Ryan asks, in what cases do you find that audio works best on social? Any thoughts on social?
I think it depends on the format and channel. Like, for example, with Facebook, we have seen really successful implementations of audio, again, being really purposeful, how you use it in your advertising or in your stories, so that it's not just something that shocks and disturbs the overall flow, but it's something that contributes to the story that you want to tell for the experience.
Okay, great. For the Finland picture storytelling example, what tools and platforms would you use to host this type of content on?
So there are different, obviously there are different groups that do that as a platform. I can't honestly tell you right off the top of my head, name the exact ones, but there are some that do that. But something that simple actually can easily be developed and created as a custom solution. It's not that complicated of a technology that's required to be able to sort of create those paths where our users are being given choices or options, and from there we're then populating or creating that idea of that finalized content. What you have to do is have sort of what your end results can be based on what those selections are, and you have to think through all those combinations so that you have accurate answers based on what those choices are. That's probably the more difficult part than the actual development side.
Right. Yeah, there are out-of-the-box tool sets like Snap that will give you, the platform, but really thinking through what you want to try and accomplish, and maybe if that's something that you're investing in, you might want to create that within your current site so that you can build out similar experiences with the same technology. Okay, another question here is, would it be possible to get the slides at the end? Yes, we are providing the slides at the end of the webinar. The 3D photos, the next question is, are 3D photos able to be used on social media advertising platforms? And Michael, maybe you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, sure. So actually, Facebook first rolled out actually a 3D photos feature. Their initial sort of rollout of it was designed more around user-generated content, people taking photos with their iPhones. Usually, I think it's iPhone 7 Plus, 8 Plus, and above. Any phone that has a dual camera, because when that dual camera takes the photograph, there's actually depth already embedded into the photo. What we've done at OmniVirt is basically allow any marketer to take existing assets they have, maybe assets not shot on an iPhone 8 Plus, which is probably most of the assets getting captured for your teams, et cetera, and layer depth into it. So that's one part of the tool that we offer. You can then take that JPEG file, the merged JPEG file, and upload that to Facebook. As far as I know, although it could maybe coming out closed beta, et cetera, Facebook doesn't currently only allows it for organic posting. There isn't a paid solution on Facebook to promote it or boost it, if you will, as part of paid boosts. I don't believe that Twitter or any of the other social platforms currently support 3D photo. What we've enabled with OmniVirt is the ability to take that same asset and run that through any of your web advertising. So whether that's programmatic, ad network buys, any sort of media campaigns that Miles or other media agencies may be supporting for you, that you can basically take your existing 2D banners and 3Dify them. But the quick answer for social, even though that was a long answer, is Facebook supports organic posts and currently doesn't support paid promotion.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael. Another question we have is in regards to experience in working with authors to create immersive media books. And I don't know that specifically we've done the development of media books, but I think we have talked with different destinations about things that we can do with their digital magazines, implementing and bringing in some of these immersive media forms into that storytelling. But I think that's a really great concept, digging into your destination and people that are maybe meaningful to either your destination specific that can kind of help you to bring a story to life that connects with your destination and your potential visitors would make sense. But anything else?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, we haven't come across and we looked at probably hundreds of destination websites and different experiences from the content studios, and we haven't seen lots of implementations of that, because probably the purpose of making content as approachable and easily discoverable as possible, like publishing it as a web page, makes it a much easier step for a user to engage. But I think as it comes to like truly rich experiences, I can see how it could be interesting when you really want to tell the story, and there could be different components like personal notes from a writer, like you can really create this creative, immersive experience. But I wish we found some good examples. We haven't. So if you do, please share them with us.
All right, next question. So to be done well, do these types of storytelling methods always need to be a completely separate experience, diverging from the rest of the more static content on a website?
These actually can be integrated into the site, but it needs to be something that's thought through, and you need to really think about where it's going to live within the site or how it's going to be placed, so that it's not such a separation from the rest of the content that it feels like a completely unique experience. The Visit Nebraska option that Elena showed, like the homepage has one experience, and when you get into some of the other pages, obviously you had to have areas where lots of content could be added quickly and more frequently, but they still have options to add that same sort of experience within those sections as well. So they might have little pieces of it, and all the pages might not be quite as immersive as that one, but you still have ways to sort of integrate it in.
Good. All right. So I think that's it in terms of the questions that we received online. I did, however, get an update from Jason that they are working on the audio media book, so we'll have to follow up with you to see how that turns out. So as we kind of close things up here, I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. We'll follow up with the resources from this session. Thanks again to Michael from OmniVirt for joining us and the rest of our team here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.